Welcome everyone, I hope you're having a very wonderful day, and welcome to my guide for access deer for Emerald Coast. Before we begin, I want to quickly break down how today's guide is going to work. So our first section will be covering their hotspots and locations, and then we're going to move on to weapon recommendations, and then we're going to end today's video with the animal profile, which will have a custom map, ammo chart, time zones, and more. Everything you need to make your hunting life 10 times easier. So let's get right into it by quickly going over these guys' drink time. These guys drink between 3 to 6, so you will have a little bit of nighttime hunting in there, and then you'll have a little bit of daytime with that last hour being between 5 and 6. So just bring a little night vision scope just in case. If you can't, just bring the NVGs and highlight them and shoot them when you're out there looking around. So we're walking up to one of our hotspots right now, so I'm going to quickly just gloss over where these guys like to reside. Now, they do not reside on the coastline here of Emerald Coast, and they very rarely touch down here in the Dry Bone Plateau, where there's only 2 lakes that I can confirm, which are over here in Hogan's Fields. The one that we're walking up to right now, and the one directly below me here, this giant one. And I do believe, I want to quickly confirm with everyone here, just to let everyone know, that this lake right here has no zones for it, but I marked at the end of today's video that it could have access deer zones. I assume that there's access deer zones, considering the way their locations are laid out. So just keep that in mind when you're out there searching. So if this comes up with a big negatory for all of y'all, just let me know so I can fix that in the animal profile when I upload it to my Discord. And then moving on, up here we have this entire waterway. I've marked it right here just to show the cutoff point for where these guys like to reside on this waterway. So it's just basically to the right of this outpost and all the way down. As for this giant side of this river here, it's pretty much all the way up to the top here at the lake here at the end point. And another thing is, for Opal Point here, these 2 lakes where this outpost is and next to this lookout point do not have access to your zones, so keep that in mind as well. When it comes into hotspots, I'm going to crouch down really quick here. I found that the best place for hotspots is actually right around this Knife Points Retreat outpost. You have roughly about 5 lakes here. You have the one to the left of it, you have the one to the right of it, and then you have the 2 down here where I'm basically at as hotspots, and then you have this one here in Tambia Coast. So you got 5 lakes, in all honesty, I think are really good hotspots. You could just head up and bounce around in between for these guys. Not only that, this giant lake off over here on the left is pretty solid as well. And the entire river here is a mega hot spot, as I'm able just to chain hunt these axis deer. Another good spot is these double lakes right here. Since these 2 lakes are very close, I consider it a hot spot, as I have a zone for each one of those. And I do have a tiny zone for this one down here as well. So that pretty much does it for all the access deer locations on the map and talking about hotspots. So let's quickly pull our binoculars out. Now, we should have quite a few here. We do have a level 3, we have a level 2, we have a level 4, and we should have plenty more. We do have quite a few singles. We have some more level 2s, level 3s. So we just have a bunch of baby males here. We got more level 3s, level 2s. Holy smokes, we have a bunch of men, low-level men here. I think the other lake, oh, there's another level 4. So we don't have a bunch of level 2s and 3s floating around. We have a few 4s. And then we got more back here as well. So I just wanted to showcase this, that this is a pretty good hotspot. Now, the other lake to the left of it is pretty similar. I do believe I have about 2 to 3 zones of access deer there, which makes it pretty good. So I recommend checking that out. And that pretty much does it, folks, for today's section for hotspots and locations. I'm going to head back to the outpost, so I'll see you guys there in just a moment. Alrighty, folks, so here we are back at the outpost. Before we begin, I want to mention quickly 3 things. First things first is I'm only going to be covering rifles, handguns, and shotguns. I'm not covering bows because I'm not a bow expert, so I'll leave that to professionals. Secondly, these are just my personal recommendations, favorites. I always say go out there and explore and see what suits you and what you enjoy playing with. And then lastly, I'll be mentioning all the deals these weapons come from in case you want to pick them up for yourself. So let's get right into it with our first rifle today, the Force Elite 300. This is not the 300 Magnum, this is 300 Blackout, and it's pretty good, honestly, for these small deer. At the start, when this DLC released, I was kind of hesitant about it. I was like, I always felt there are better alternatives that's already out in the game, which there are, but I do recommend this because it has 6 rounds in it. Its recoil is relatively low. It's not a bad rifle by any means, but for certain deer species, it will have a slower drop rate. Do I think it should cover the classes that it should? No, but it's a pretty good rifle for these axis deer if that's what you want to use it on, and you can find this bad boy in the Hunter's Choice Bolt Action Rifle Pack. Moving on to our next rifle of the day, which is, all honesty, the better one out of all 3 that I'll be recommending. This weapon list, by the way, I just forgot to mention, is the same as my Feral Goat video, so if you guys already watched that, I recommend just skipping it. It's just the same loadout. But For our second rifle here, the Model 1894 is a lever action 44. It is very, very solid. This is why I recommend using for these guys because you can shoot them anywhere. It'll pass through them. You can shoot them frontally. It'll pass through the back end to the front end. This is just a very overpowered weapon to use on these guys, and I highly recommend using it. You can find it in the Ambusher Weapon Pack DLC. I do want to point out, though, get the highest pen and ammo for it, and then you'll have a blast. Moving on to our final rifle of the day. It is this right here. Now, I'm not going to refer to it as the in-game name. I'll refer to it only as the Mosin. This thing is pretty solid. It does drop them relatively easy with those beautiful side shots, and it will just... My gripe with the Mosin, unfortunately, is that it only has soft point rounds. I wish it had pen-in rounds, but they have limited this rifle. So that's fine, but it still does the job. It's very solid. I enjoy using it. I use it every so often. But in all honesty, that 44 kind of puts a lot of these weapons to shame when it comes to these lower classes of 3s because of just the penetration on it's just insane. But if you want a bolt action, I recommend the Mosin and then the 300. But if you do want the poly rounds, I recommend just using the 300. So that pretty much does it for the rifle selection. Moving on to handguns. The 243 Kumo, very solid handgun. The only reason why I consider it very good, at least the second best pistol in the game, is because you can put a rifle scope on it. It will drop these guys relatively easy. It's very fun to use and good to level up your pistols with, and you can find it in the Assorted Sidearms Weapon Pack DLC. Moving on to shotguns. Honestly, guys, this is Emerald Coast. A lot of this map is very open. I don't typically want to recommend shotguns, but people do want to use them, so I'm here to recommend the Norden 20 gauge. This is what I use for a majority of my small game. It's very solid, very fun to use. I do recommend using it on this map if you're up in the jungle areas where you can creep in a lot easier. Obviously, down bottom there's a lot of open terrain, so I highly recommend not using it unless you're going to be shooting slugs, which I don't even think the slugs cover class 3 with the 20 gauge whatsoever, so there's really honestly no point, which we're checking it out right now. Where the heck is it? Yeah, classes 4 through 7, so you'd honestly just be using buckshot, so you're not going to be able to use the slugs on these axis deer. So if you're going to use it in the woods up in the northern section. If not, then you're just probably going to have to use rifles down the bottom. So that pretty much does it today, folks, for the weapon recommendation. I'm going to head over to the animal profile and see you guys there in just a second. Alrighty, folks, so here we are at the end of today's video. Before I let you guys go, I'm going to do a quick animal profile breakdown. Starting left-hand side, we have all of our basic access deer information. We have our class, difficulty, silver, gold, diamond threshold. We have our weight from least to greatest in kilograms in pounds. We have our fur types here in common, rare, and very rare. Moving on the center map, we pretty much covered all that information at the very beginning of today's video where we talked about hotspots and locations. Moving on, top right-hand corner, we have all of our time zones nice and organized for you guys. And then below that, we have our ammo chart for those full integrity kills. Now that pretty much does it for today's video, folks. If you guys enjoyed, please drop a like. It really helps that channel an awful lot. And I hope you guys have a very wonderful day. Happy hunting, good luck, and I will see you guys in the next one.